Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of, or actually a Nintendo/gaming video for this week. I forgot to mention that part. For the week of November 29th to December 5th, and we have 4 stories to cover this week, including rumors going around about the so-called self-claimed PS4 Pro that Sony may be doing. We're going to be looking at basically sales numbers, or at least reports of sales of how the PS5 and Xbox Series S did. I also want to go over one of the upcoming Koei Tecco game, Atelier Ryza. I think Atelier Ryza. Apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. That was my water bottle. 2, and a comment that the developers at Gust and Koei Tecco made in regards of the whole situation with censorship and so forth. And of course, an update that the Nintendo Switch recently had, which offers some new features, but one that's kind of sort of controversial that it's caught some people's attention though, and well, let's just say not everybody will be appreciated about this feature that Nintendo should have basically talked about though. Before we get started right now, I do want to go through the quick My 2 Cent part. Stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details though. The first one is that we got a report that Saga Frontier is going to be remastered, and it's announced for summer 2021, and supposedly, and basically, or at least for what I heard, it's going to be coming to not only the PS4, ISO, and Android, but also to the Nintendo Switch as well, which is certainly a game I'll keep an eye out for, since it will be coming out to the Nintendo Switch in 2021 though. For what I understand, it will have some features such as speed up the battles, to even basically having another character into it as well. So I never played this series before. I might take a look at this one, to be exact, when it comes out during the summer. We also learned that basically Aulx, supposedly something got leaked and then they took the trailer down, but apparently it seems as though what was called Persona 5 Scramble in Japan is now going to be called Persona 5 Striker here in the West. This is basically the collaboration between Aulx and Koei Tecco and Omega Force. Think of it kind of like what Nintendo was with Koei Tecco and the whole Hyrule Warrior situation, but it looks as though this game, Persona 5 Striker, is going to be coming to the West in February 2021, at least according to the reports coming out, and it's not only coming to the Nintendo Switch, but the PS4, and even PC via Steam, and I think some people point to this due to the fact that Persona 4 Gold did very well on Steam, which is nice, although Aulx, if you're bringing Persona 5 Striker over to the Nintendo Switch, why not bring over Persona 5 in general? I'm sure a lot of Nintendo fans would like to see that happen. We also learned that basically the Mortal Kombat movie it's going to be back on track though, and it looks like it will be released in theaters. But this also has to do with Warner Brothers now making a decision that not only will they be releasing their movies in theaters, but now on HBO Max the same day. This is a very similar approach that they are taking right now with Wonder Woman 1984. Some people will look at this as that because we're still in the coronavirus pandemic situation, that studios are reevaluating how they're going to release their movies and all that stuff. At the same time, not everybody is pleased with this, though. Some people think this is going to be the death of movie theaters and all that stuff. And while I understand some of the concerns, given the fact that we're in a coronavirus situation, not everybody's going to feel comfortable right now of going to the movie theaters, considering coronavirus and so forth, COVID-19. So studios like Warner Brothers are taking this kind of approach. Is it controversial? Yeah, I can see some arguments for and against this, but as of right now, this is the direction that Warner Brothers is going with in terms of their future release. And it's not only Mortal Kombat and Wonder Woman 1984, but the upcoming Doom, Matrix 4, and other releases as well. So obviously this is what Warner Brothers is doing at the moment in terms of releasing their movies in both theaters and on HBO Max at the same time. And last but not least, we have learned that there are reports coming out that Samus may be coming to Fortnite. Now, some people may, and this has to do with the fact that Kratos is now also in Fortnite as well, which I feel is a little bit odd to see him there, but it is what it is, plus the Mandalorian and all that stuff. Now, some people are thinking whether this is true or not. Some people don't think it will happen, given the fact that Nintendo has a history of being very protective of their IPs, and that is true. Nintendo is known to be very protective of their IPs, though. Sometimes they're in the right in terms of protecting their IPs, but then there are times when I do have to say they do go a little bit overboard in terms of protecting their IPs. So, could this happen? It's possible. I mean, it may not happen at all, but on the other hand, we have seen situations such as when Dead or Alive Dimension was released on the Nintendo 3DS. They did a level based off of Metroid Other M. We've also seen the Samus skin has been used in Rocket League, where you can have one of your cards look like the helmet that Samus Aran uses, though. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that Fortnite, in terms of Samus coming to Fortnite, how she would work in a game like that, I don't know. I'm not really a Fortnite fan, so we'll have to wait and see how this plays out, though. But maybe it's a possibility for them to build up interest for the eventual release of Metroid Prime 4, or at least the Metroid Prime trilogy. Which, honestly, Nintendo, please, if that game is finished, please release it onto the Nintendo Switch. I think it's time for that game to come to the Nintendo Switch now. Okay, now that the quick My 2 cent part is now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with the Nintendo Switch. Mostly, as some of you may be aware of, though, Nintendo has recently released an update entitled 1.1. It brings in some interesting new features, but at the same time, it also brings one controversial thing that may not sit well with everybody. So there have been several articles on it. Let's see if I click on it about this new feature, though. So we'll start off with the first one, though, and that has to do with what's in the update, basically called 1.1, though. Although 1.1, though, this is from Destructoid, but I'm sure you can look it up at other sites. It brings up several things. First off, it says about Nintendo Switch Online was added to the home menu. Access all Nintendo Switch Online servers, from getting the latest information to checking your membership status. They point out this feature is not available in some countries or regions. A new feature that automatically downloads backup save data was added to the Save Cloud data. When using software with the same Nintendo account linked to multiple systems, save data backup from one console will automatically be downloaded to your other system. To use this feature, it must be enabled under System Settings, Data Management, and Save Cloud data. Save data will not be downloaded automatically unless save data from that software exists on the console. The first time only, users must download the save data manually. A Nintendo Switch Online membership is required to use the Save Data Cloud service. That one, for as far as Switch Online membership goes, that one's kind of controversial. Not everyone is a fan of that approach, but it is what it is. And so far, it hasn't stopped people for those who do want to sign up for Nintendo Switch Online membership. Anyway, continuing on, it reads, a new trending feature was added to the user page. Users can check what software their friends are playing or have started playing recently. Information will not be displayed for friends who have their online status set to display to no one. It points out user can now transfer screenshots and videos from albums to their smart devices. Users can use wirelessly connect their smart devices to Nintendo Switch to transfer their screenshots and videos saved within their albums. So, for screenshots, users can transfer to a maximum of 10 screenshots and one video capture at once. To connect, users must use their smart devices to scan the QR code displayed on the Nintendo Switch screen. They also prefer to see Nintendo Support's website for more information about that, though. I did try that feature out for a bit. And to some degree, it does work, though, but I don't know if I did something wrong in terms of, trying to upload it to Facebook or Twitter. I'll have to re-examine it, though. But to a certain degree, it does work, though. But I just prefer, uploading my clips, especially if it's, a 30-second clip, to my Twitter or Facebook, which I have linked to my Nintendo Switch. But yes, it does work to a certain extent, but like I said, I still have to iron out some of the areas, though. But anyway, continuing on, it reads that a new copy to a computer via USB Connect feature was added under the System Setting, data management screenshots and videos. Users can now connect a USB cable to connect the Nintendo Switch to their computer to copy their screenshots and videos saved under albums. A USB charge cable model HAC-010 or USB -IF certified USB cable that supports data transfer is required to connect to another computer. They asked, go to Nintendo's website for information on this. It says, quote, connecting via a Nintendo Switch dock is not supported. It says, please connect the Nintendo Switch system directly to your computer. It also points out that users can now select what download to prioritize when there are multiple downloads in progress. When there are multiple software updated data or downloadable content download in progress, users can now select what they want to download first. You can set this under the download option by selecting the icon for the software you want to download first on the home menu. They also added that basically they've now added 12 new icons that commemorate or celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Series that were added, which is nice. But then again, you also have the March 31st date that's coming up in terms of them ending support for Super Mario Bros. 35 and not selling Super Mario 3D All-Stars anymore. So a little bit odd, but hey, you got until March, so you have, like it or not, you still have time if you want to get Super Mario Bros. 3D All-Stars and play Super Mario Bros. 35. But yeah, I can see why some people may. It's a mixed bag on that one. Anyway, continuing on, users can now name preset button mapping with the change button band feature, and they also announced that Brazilian Portuguese was added as a supported language. When users set their region to the Americans and their language to Portuguese, the language used on the home menu and in certain software will be displayed in Brazilian Portuguese. And they also point out several issues were fixed, and users' ability and stability were improvement. So there's some neat features that they added in. I mean, are there features I would have liked to see? Yeah, I mean, like folders would be nice. Nintendo, we've been asking that for a long time. So that transferring some information though is certainly like your screenshots and pictures. I mean, that certainly is a nice feature indeed, and that certainly might be helpful for some folks out there though. And so forth. So this is certainly nice for what they are doing, and some of these features looks interesting. But again, not everyone is down with what Nintendo has shown on this update, though. There are two issues people have. One, I don't think it's as controversial as some people make it out to be. Another one, I could see where this could become an issue, though. The first one has to do with the fact that not everybody is happy with the home menu in terms of the Nintendo Switch Online icon. This comes from Nintendo Life, and it reads that, quote, perhaps the biggest part of the firmware update is the addition of the Nintendo Switch Online Hub, which allows subscribers to access all of the online service in one place. As noticed in the updated patch note, a Nintendo Switch icon has been added to the Switch home menu, and well, not everybody seems to be happy with it though. A quick search over social media reveals a number of users who are annoyed by the fact that it doesn't blend in with the rest of the user interface, like at all. Some of the reactions are ranging from, I am unreasonably upset the Nintendo Switch Online icon on the home screen is not consistent with the rest of the icons. Another person saying this looks forced and unnecessary though. One says, I dislike how hard the Nintendo Switch Online icon stands out. One person writes, I hate this Nintendo Switch icon. It's basically an advertisement. The application serves no purpose. And so forth. So not everyone is a fan of it though. Personally, I'm not losing sleep over it though. I'm not really losing sleep over the icon or anything like that. I know some Switch owners tend to make it a big deal and all that stuff, but really it's not something to lose sleep over it though. So I can care less though. But again, that's me. That's how I think and all that stuff. So I don't think it's a big deal. Others are going to see it differently and all. But the one thing that basically that has caught some people's attention that not everyone is happy with is something that Nintendo did not share in regards to this update, and that is the fact that some of your information is being shared via Google Analytics. In an article from Screen Rant, though, it reads that, quote, it says that, quote, Nintendo has once again switched on its Google Analytics data sharing feature on the Switch, even if users had opted out of it in the past, though. It reads that, quote, a Redditor has discovered that Nintendo has been reportedly opting users back into data gathering via Google Analytics through its Nintendo Switch software update. All three modern home consoles and many AAA video games have online components that ask users if it's okay to send data back to the mothership for analytics for better the user experience. The harm this data has done is debatable, and it comes along several improvements to the console's screenshot capability, but there are many who prefer that not a share of it leaves the home. Unfortunately, this has proven harder and harder to pull off as the years have gone on. Matters of online privacy often haven't been much of a problem for gamers who stick with Nintendo, mainly because Nintendo's online offering has always lagged behind other platforms. While the company started offering network gaming along the Xbox and PS2 on the GameCube, that console's network adapter was used in a grand total of 5 games across the world and a handful more that supports local LAN play. The Wii and the Wii U offered digital games and online play, but it still didn't feel like a Nintendo console had an overreaching online service until the Switch arrived. Naturally, when that kind of service does arrive, data gathering is not far behind. One of the users on Reddit made the discovery that Nintendo has switched the data gathering back to the default in its 11.0 update. This is the second time the internet has noticed this change. When the first happened last month on the same board. Those that switched the feature off the first time around are finding that Nintendo has opted them back into the data gathering against their own preference. However, it's not happening everywhere, and with very good reasons. Commentators on the post from both Europe and Australia are starting that they don't see options to opt out of data sharing, and that might be because Nintendo isn't allowed to harvest it in the first place. Laws in those regions of the world forbid the type of data sharing where companies can opt in without prior notice, similar to how many websites ask users about cookies in modern time. California also has laws in the book against this sort of thing, which could prove to be an issue if Nintendo is set on changing the setting for users whenever a new update goes out. For now, users want to keep their Google Analytics profits as empty as possible and will have to keep checking back on frequent basis, though. It may seem uncharacteristic of Nintendo to act like a DRACONIAN corporation in matters of user policies, especially since the company that warns of the danger of online gaming to this day. However, with the occurrence of the recent habits of shutting down Smash Bros. Community and the new strategy of removing games from sales after a set period of time, the gaming world may see a new Nintendo without rosy tin glass that has instituted its from criticism for so long. Again, I think this information should have been notified to users when this update came out, and the fact that Nintendo did not notify users about this, saying, "Hey, just a reminder, when accessing this update, we do turn on Google Analytics." I think that's unacceptable. I really think Nintendo should have notified people, is saying, this is what's going to happen. If you want to turn it off, here's what you need to do, and all that stuff. Though, now, some people may not have an issue with Google Analytics, them using their data for Google Analytics and all that stuff. Some people may not have a problem with this, but I could see where this could become an issue. And I really think Nintendo, like I said, should have been upfront about this from the beginning when they announced this update, though. And I think it is unacceptable for them not to disclose this information right away, especially for those who want to protect their digital privacy and so forth. So overall, very interesting update. Some of the features I like, some of it I wish they added on. I do think people making a big deal about the Nintendo Switch Online icon, I think it's ridiculous. And I will say, if there is a big criticism I will say about this update, is the fact that Nintendo should have notified users who updated this, who own the Switch, about this data sharing without their permission, all that stuff. And I think that is, in my opinion, that's one of the big criticisms I will give to them on this new update. And I think that it is unacceptable that they did not become forthcoming about this kind of information. This should have been shared with Switch owners right away before they decided to download this update, to let them know whether they want to opt out of this data sharing, or whether they want to keep the data sharing, or if they wanted to opt out over it. So shame on Nintendo for not notifying users or Switch owners about this in the first place, if this report is true, which sounds like it is, more than likely is, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with the upcoming Koei Tecco game, Atelier Ryza, if I'm saying the name correctly, 2, and a comment they made in regards of censorship and all. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, I want to take a look at the upcoming Koei Tecco Gust game called Atelier Ryza 2, again, if I'm saying that, I apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly, which is a sequel to the first game that was released, I believe, also on the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch. But that series got, one of the main things that got the attention was the main female character, which is known for having what, very thick thighs. In other words, aka, fan service and waifus and all that stuff. In fact, she became so famous that there is a actual statue or actual figure that you could buy. The catch is that it's worth a whopping $25,000. So it's one of those figurines, like, if you really have money to blow, then there it is. Personally, I wouldn't, if I'm going to spend $25,000, I'd rather save my money up for like buying a new car or anything like that. But that's me and all that stuff. So I think a lot of people who are fans of the first one are probably going to be looking forward to the second one. But some issues have begun to emerge in reports of terms of censorship. And some of this has to do with one of the trailers that were shown at the Tokyo Game Show a while back that showed Dust Cloud appearing with one of the female characters based on their designs and all that stuff, based off the PlayStation version. This led to the suggestion that Sony was going to censor this, though, compared to what Nintendo is, given Nintendo has sort of changed some of their policies in regards of content on their system, where they're saying they're going to take more of a hands-off approach and let third-party developers make whatever game they want to make, as long as they stay within the rating system and so forth, which I personally applaud that. I think that's a good thing. However, censorship has come up in terms of controversies before in the past, though. We saw with Devil May Cry 5, there was a censorship where there was one scene where certain body parts of Trish, which showed her like naked and all that stuff, was covered up, although Sony admit that was a mistake. Dead or Alive Scarlet, basically for the PS4 version, had to be toned down. I mean, Dead or Alive Volleyball Scarlet, though, that's the one where some of the outfits had to be toned down or removed due to it being too lewd and all that stuff, compared to the Nintendo Switch version, which was sort of what many view as the uncensored version, though. We've seen situations where the Serene Kagura creator left, resigned from the development team or worked for Marfus and decided to go work for another company in protest over the whole censorship policy, though. Galgun, a port of the original game, is coming to the Xbox One Xbox One, Switch, and Steam, but will be skipping the PS4, and many expect it's due to Sony's policies and all that stuff, which, again, it's Sony's decision, but that doesn't mean I 100% agree with it, though. And while Nintendo has been more open to the idea, open to letting developers make the game whatever kind of game they want to make, as long as it stays within the rating system, they came under fire when it was later learned that Tokyo Mirage Session Encore, the Switch version of the Wii U game, would be based off the Western version, not the Japanese version, that didn't sit very well with everyone, including those in Japan, which prompted Nintendo to apologize for not informing people about that and offering a refund, which meanwhile, the Japanese version of Tokyo Mirage Session for the Wii U shot up at the #1 spot on Amazon in Japan. So, technically being, censorship has kind of popped up on this issue now and then, though. And recently, Koei Tecmo made a response to some of the concerns about censorship when they did an interview with Nintendo Life. So, in the article from Nintendo Life, and they give a little part of the response. This is what the article said. Quote, "Censorship in Japanese video games coming to the West is certainly nothing new. An instance of developers altering content to work in certain markets or on certain platforms are still relatively common these days. Sony in particular often comes in for criticism for obstructing any cheapness it doesn't want on PlayStation. Nintendo has been more lenient in many cases, although it does get involved with policing certain content on occasion. As I mentioned, Tokyo Mirage Session Encore is a good example of this. But anyway, continue on. In an interview with Nintendo Life, Junos Hosa, Junzo Hosoi, apologize for not saying it correctly, brand manager at developer Gust and producer of the upcoming RPG Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends, and The Secret Fairy, has spoken about the team's approach and opinion concerning censorship in the West, in contrast to some developers who felt increasingly restricted to this area. This person doesn't necessarily see it as a negative. Asked how developers felt about altercation in other markets and other platforms, this is what he had to say. Quote, "The Gust team does not see the need to edit a title for another culture or country as something necessarily bad. We do not have any bad or negative opinion particularly on this. Each country has their own unique culture, and it really depends on what type of story the director, producer, or creator wants to infuse in the title. Sometimes it might not work for every culture. In the case of Atelier Ryza 2, the title we put together does not need to be censored for any market, and many people around the world can enjoy it as it was intended. Of course, as a player, I understand the desire to play the game as the creator intended. The Gust team opinion stands in contrast to some other developers, such as the Serene Kagura producer, who reportedly resigned for his role at Marvelous last year, partially through frustration at increased censorship, though. As is stated, author Ryza 2 isn't being altered overseas or release, and despite some convenient dust cloud being added to a Sony trailer that apparently won't appear in the game on any platform, as clarified by publisher Koei Tecmo on Twitter when it released in the West at the end of January 21. The article concludes that elsewhere in the interview, they discussed the popularity of this game and the potential for future entries of the series featuring her in the lead role, and so forth, though. So, my position on all this, though, and say what you will, but the thing is that I've always viewed it as this. As long as the game stays within the rating system, if that's the kind of game the developers want to make, then that should be the game the developers want to make, though. If they want to make a game where with scantily clad characters or where fan service is the selling point, fine. Whether that clicks with people or not, that's going to be up to consumers to decide. But as long as it stays within the rating system, that is perfectly okay. I mean, it's the same view I have with the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077, though. Developers don't have a problem with this being an M-rated game, and I don't have a problem if they want to add nudity or sex or anything like that, though. I think that, but I will say that I don't agree with Sony's position in terms of, toning down some of the stuff when compared to Nintendo, which has been more open outside the situation with Tokyo Mirage Session Encore, been more open now, which is definitely good compared to how they were in the 90s and all that stuff. Now, I will admit, Sony, Microsoft, and even Nintendo itself will draw the lines in terms of any game receiving the AO, which is basically the adults only rating, which is the equivalent of if a movie got a rating of NC-17 and all that stuff. So, I mean, I have to kind of agree. with some people who are concerned about the censorship, because I really think it should be up to the developers to make the kind of game they want to make. But like I said, it has to stay within the rating system. And as long as it stays within the rating system, that's fine. I'm not going to complain about Cyberpunk 2077 putting nudity or sex or anything like that. I'm not going to complain about this game, which looks like the main selling, which some of the selling point is fan service, though. Again, some people may like it, some people may not. It's all going to come down to one preference and taste, though. But I can understand where censorship can be an issue for some folks out there, though, and I think that as long as it stays within the rating system, that is fine and all. So overall, though, I'm glad the developers clarifying their stance on video games censorship and all that stuff. And like I said before, and I know I'm beating the dead horse from saying this, as long as the game stays within the rating system, though, then I don't think it should be an issue. Developers can make the kind of, if they want to make that kind of a game, that's their call and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, consumers are going to be the ones to decide whether they are okay with this or not. But like I said, I don't 100% agree with, censorship in video games. I think that it's just keep it within the rating system, and that is perfectly fine and all that stuff. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with supposedly reports of sales numbers so far, or at least launch sales numbers of the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at, apparently what we're getting right now are the sales or launch numbers for, the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X. Now, obviously, both consoles launched during one of the weeks in November. Xbox Series S and S launched on November 10th, and I believe the PS5 was November 12th. And obviously everyone's been having a hard time trying to get both of those systems, although I managed to get an Xbox Series S and all that stuff, and even was still struggle to get it on Black Friday and all that stuff. I unfortunately was not able to get one, to be exact. Not to mention we are dealing with the issues of scalpers who are selling them at outrageous prices, even going as far as saying, hey, we have the empty PS5 box and all that stuff. Yeah, so for a lot of folks, it seems to be a hard time trying to find a PS5 or an Xbox Series S. But despite that, it seems the sales numbers, at least for both systems, seem to be doing pretty well. Although the PS5 certainly did better in terms of sales, in terms of Xbox Series S and X and S, though, Microsoft did very well with their systems too. Even Nintendo Switch certainly did well. It also did as well too, though, as well. In an article from the Notebook, Notebook Check, though, it reads that, quote, PS5 sales versus Xbox Series X and S sales. Estimated figures give PS5 the win, but Microsoft console and the Nintendo Switch are in great demand. Estimated figures for the launch day sales for both PS5 and Xbox Series X and X console have revealed that although Sony's device had greatly outsold its rivals, there has still been plenty of demands for Microsoft's machines. In terms of weekly console sales, the Nintendo Switch has been happily snapping at the heels of PS5 and Xbox Series S and X. Article reads that, quote, unsurprisingly, the PS5 defeat the Xbox Series S and X when it came to launch day sales, at least according to the estimates put together by VG Charts analysts, though. It's worth pointing out VG Charts somewhat has a history of getting things right and sometimes getting it wrong, though. I'm not saying they're wrong all the time, but sometimes they are spot on and sometimes they are off, though. Anyway, according to this, it says, apparently 2.1 million to 2.5 million units of the PS5 were sold in total of its true launch day, but the Xbox Series S and X also did very well with an estimated 1.2 million to 1.4 million units sold. up to 78,000 Xbox Series consoles were sold just in the U.S. on launch day, while the launch day sales estimate for the PS5 in the U.S. stands at basically 1.2 million. The VG Charts reports offer some breakdowns of the launch day figures for Sony's hardware, revealing 230,000 to 280,000 PS5 consoles were sold in the UK in the first 24 hours of release, November 19th, while Canada snatched up around 100,000 units in the week before, November 12th. Gamers in Australia and New Zealand account for a decent total of 45 to 60,000 units, while the PS5 also sold strongly in Germany and France with over 100,000 units apiece. VG Charts estimate that the Xbox Series S and S made a sterling effort in Europe, with up to many as 400,000 consoles sold on launch day. As for the recent worldwide console sales figures for November 8th to 14th, once again, the PS5 is the winner, but only just. Sales for Sony's devices are estimated at 1.8 million for the week, while Microsoft managed 1.35 million. Curiously enough, the Nintendo Switch still managed to reach a figure of over 722,000 sales, even in a week dominated by heavy PS5 and Xbox Series X and S promotion. The Switch was the best-selling console in Asia for this period, while things were very close between the two big guns in Australia and New Zealand, with the PS5 beating the Xbox Series by less than 3,000 units. However, the numbers will look constantly different for the next period, as it will indicate the PS5 rest of the world's launch date, November 19th, meaning, which probably is already out though, meaning the Europe sales figures will likely be dominated by Sony devices, and no doubt there will be big changes to the Asian and global market estimate though. Although most expect the PS5 to clean up in regards of sales in the gaming hardware market, these estimated figures still make a positive reading for executives over at Xbox headquarters, while Nintendo bosses will surely be wearing smiles of smug satisfaction though. So obviously it looks as though that while PS5 certainly was dominated in terms of the launch day sales, it looks like Microsoft did very well for their system indeed, and it's possible that we could see a situation where this generation could be a bit different than it was the last generation. One of the main reasons why PS4 was the dominant for the last generation was, of course, Nintendo shot themselves in the foot with the Wii U, and that didn't take off as well, while Microsoft shot themselves in the foot with a lot of bad decisions, such as the Always Online, Connect, and a lot of other stuff that didn't sit very well with a lot of users though. Going into this generation, we're seeing a much different kind of situation though. Nintendo is certainly doing very well with the Switch. Currently, last time I checked, it was 68 million, and it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility it could reach 100 million units sold worldwide. While Microsoft has certainly done a better job promoting their system than they did with the Xbox One and all that stuff, although not having Halo Infinite at launch, I would say to some degree may have hurt them to a certain extent. But so far it seems all three companies should be happy where things are heading right now. So it looks like while Microsoft didn't overtake the PS5 on launch day, still got off to a good start though. It's going to be interesting to see going forward whether that situation changes or not. But it does sound like that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo should be happy where things were during the holidays. So overall, obviously, in terms of launch date, in terms of systems on their launch date, how well they did, PS5 certainly dominated though, but it looks as though Xbox Series X and S certainly did very well on its own, and I have a feeling there is a good chance this generation could be different than it was during the PS4, Xbox One, and Wii U generation though, and it looks like there is a chance Sony might, given how things play out though, Sony might have more of a competition than it was during the PS4 generation though. One last thing to point out though, however, is that it looks like Sony might be teasing a response to what Microsoft's doing with their Xbox Game Pass, which is certainly has received praise from a lot of people who definitely enjoy it though. So from an article from GameSpot though, it reads that, quote, Xbox Game Pass is likely the most popular gaming subscription service right now, and all eyes are now on Sony to respond to it. In a TASS interview, when asked directly on what Sony might plan in order to compete with Xbox Game Pass, Sony Interactive CEO Jim Ryan stated that there is news to come. Ryan also pointed out PlayStation does offer a competitor to Xbox Game Pass already. We have PlayStation Now, and that is available in a number of markets, he stated though. PlayStation Now is primarily meant for streaming. However, certain games are available to download. Xbox Game Pass can be played locally or if on an Android device via streaming. PlayStation Now market is also limited compared to Game Pass, with the service only being available in North America, Europe, and Japan. In the past few years, Sony has already been steadily trying to compete with Xbox Game Pass. In 2019, it cut its monthly price for PlayStation Now from $20 to $10, seemingly in an effort to match Xbox Game Pass monthly base price of $10. In 2020, Sony announced PlayStation Plus Collection, a service that gives PlayStation Plus subscribers a selection of big PS4 titles. In Gaming Industry Biz interview, Ryan stated that the great first-party IPs are all there, and the great partner titles. We say that if you are new to PlayStation or if you have a PS4 but are getting a PS5, you're taking out a PlayStation Plus subscription, you're basically getting PS4 there for the price of the subscription. Ryan also emphasized the company will not be emulating certain parts of Xbox Game Pass strategy. In particular, Ryan disagrees with Microsoft's tactics of releasing new games as soon as they come out on the subscription service. We are not going to go down that road of putting new releases title in a subscription model. These games cost many millions of dollars, well over 100 to develop. We just don't see that as sustainable, though, he commanded. It's no secret that Xbox Game Pass is a big appeal for consumers looking to make a decision between the PlayStation or Xbox consoles. And $10 a month, players can access over 200 games. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate tiers also incorporate EA Play titles. Recently adding a bigger state of games to the subscription service. Ultimate includes Xbox Live Gold as well. Subscribers essentially never have to buy a new Xbox Game Studio title again, and they are all released through the service on the same day they launch traditionally, and so forth. So obviously Xbox Game Pass has been very successful for Microsoft and all that stuff, and it's going to be really interesting to see what Sony does, though, whether or not theirs can offer something better than what Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass does or not. So I am kind of curious to see what direction Sony will do with that. So overall, very interesting response in regards to the Xbox Game Pass, whether it becomes a success or not, or whether it can become a true competitor to Microsoft's Game Pass. That remains to be seen at this moment. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with rumors regarding the whole situation with a possibility of a PS5 Pro. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with reports about a rumor going around that Sony is working on a PS5 Pro and all that stuff. Now, during the PS4's generation, and even with Microsoft with the Xbox One, though, we saw basically revisions of a lot of these systems. For basically Sony side, we saw the PS4 Pro and the PS4 Slim and all that stuff. Basically, the Pro being more like the 4K machine and so forth. While with Microsoft, we saw from the Xbox One, we went to Xbox One S to Xbox One X and so forth. A system, the Xbox One X being the more powerful one than the S and the original base Xbox One. And we're also hearing rumors about Nintendo releasing maybe a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro and all that stuff. So, but again, we'll have to wait until there's official confirmation on that one, though. But we've seen mid-gen refreshments last generation and all that stuff, and there's been questions of whether or not there will be something similar like that. Well, recently a report came out from Tom's Guide that pointed out that basically that they just found out there was a patent filed by Sony that looks like that there will be a PS4 Pro and all that stuff. But some folks, especially like me, are somewhat skeptical about this though. So from an article, if I can get it up, from Screen Rant, it says, it asks about, the article title is Why PS4 Pro is Trending on Twitter and all that stuff. It reads that, quote, some Twitter users may have noticed a strange PlayStation-related term trending on Twitter on Wednesday. The term PS5 Pro has been included in posts thousands of times Wednesday morning and afternoon. It's a strange event considering the PS5 has only just been released and there's no major reveal or new announcement regarding a new PS5 console being made. Nevertheless, PS5 Pro is trending on Twitter. As usual for Twitter trends, the reason rise is somewhat silly. In early August, a Sony patent surfaced showing a multiple GPU hardware design. The PS5, as well as Sony's previous PlayStation console, have been based around a single GPU console design. As such, PlayStation fans ran with the idea that a multiple GPU argument could be used to scale up the current PS5 hardware to create a mid-gen refresh. The patent news was shown at the time tied to the possibility of a PS5 Pro. Using the term PS5 Pro was purely speculative, but was a popular nevertheless. What apparently has started with the latest PS5 Pro Twitter trend was a reemergence of this news. An article from T3, which I believe is called Tom's Guide, I'm not 100% sure, but I assume that's the name, shared an editorial news piece about this patent, discussing the patent in a recent news story. It goes over the nature of the patent, its potential for cloud gaming, the possibility of a PS5 Pro console coming out anytime soon, and so on. At best, as it can be told, this article is based for the trending kicking off, though. It isn't necessarily the subject of the article that started off a Twitter trend, though. However, as with most Twitter trends, there was something about the article that triggered a bigger conversation. The title of the article is "PS5 Pro with 2 graphics card is the death blow to Xbox Series X didn't see coming." Suffice to say, the title triggered enough controversy on social media to start the PS5 Pro trending off. Funny enough, the title doesn't argue the Xbox Series X will receive a death blow anytime soon. While the T3 article may have helped start the trend, Twitter got its trend all on its own. The majority of tweets using the term anyone are simply speculation about the possibility of a PS5 Pro console. Or more accurately, Twitter users are complaining that they haven't even been able to get a PS5 Pro yet, so much too early to talk about PS5 Pro. It just goes to show the flicker nature of the internet and social media. Even a news story from 4 months ago can create a Twitter trend, so long it's about a relevant topic and it's posed in a way to provoke a response. In case it needs to be said, there is no actual news regarding a PS5 Pro being confirmed in the works and all that stuff. Now, like I said before, mid-gen refreshment console isn't certainly a new thing. We've seen this before with the PlayStation 4, how we got the PS4 Pro, and with Microsoft did that with basically, from the Xbox One to the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. Though, I mean, hell, even Nintendo did that. I think with the original Game Boy to Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, Nintendo DS Lite, Nintendo DSi, Nintendo 3DS, and new Nintendo 3DS, and as I mentioned before, rumors are going around about a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro. So it isn't mid-gen refreshments isn't something that hasn't been heard. I haven't seen before and all that stuff. Is it possible a PS5 Pro could exist? Like anything, it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, though. I mean, if we've seen mid-gen refreshments last generation, then I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see something this generation. After all, I believe Microsoft made a comment saying that there'll be other entries in the Xbox Series. So we have S and X. There might be another entry at some point down the road. That said, just because this patent has been discovered and all that stuff doesn't guarantee that a PS5 Pro is going to happen, though. Patents have been filled out before many times by different companies out there, though. Sometimes these patents see the light of day, sometimes they don't. I mean, Nintendo filled out a patent for a sleep thing for their, at the time, their so-called quality of life. That never saw the light of day. To a thing, a Vicurs, like a sensory that reads your finger, that was an attachment for the Wii remote during the Wii era. That again did not see the light of day. To even when, at the time when the Switch was called the NX, there were patents of the shape of the controller with a screen on it and all that stuff. Though there was a whole controversy when someone posted a picture of what the NX was going to look like, although that turned out to be fake and all that stuff. That was the design was based off the patent and all that stuff. So patents sometimes do see the light of day and sometimes they don't, and when they do, they may not exactly look like what the design and the patent looks like, though. I could say the same thing with trademarks. I mean, Nintendo trademarked Eternal Darkness God knows how many times, which Nintendo, seriously, you need to do something with Eternal Darkness to be exact. But as far as I could tell, I don't think we're going to see a PS5 Pro, at least not yet at this moment. I mean, it's possible a couple years down the road, a PS5 Pro could technically happen, but I just don't think this is happening right now. And I think this article from T3 makes it just seem like it's a ridiculous article in my opinion, though. So overall, it's not out of the realm of possibility that a PS5 Pro could technically happen, but just because Sony puts out a patent for this console with double GPU and so forth doesn't necessarily mean that a PS5 Pro is going to happen, though. I mean, like I said before, companies have filled out patents before. Some have seen the light of day, some have not. So I wouldn't read into it as this is official confirmation that a PS5 Pro is going to happen. Let alone we don't know if it's going to have any impact to the Xbox Series X or not, though. Considering the fact that Microsoft has said before that there are going to be no entries in the Xbox Series and all that stuff. That could be true, that could be not, who knows. So, like I said, it's not out of the realm of possibility a PS5 Pro could happen, but I'm not treating this patent as this is going to happen, though. Like I said, companies fail patents many times. Some see the light of day, some don't, really. Okay, this concludes this My Two Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the Switch 11.0 update that, or this update that Nintendo released for the Switch, though? Do you like some of the new features they put in, though? Do you think people are making too big of a deal over the Nintendo Switch Online logo on the home menu? And do you think Nintendo should be criticized for the fact that they basically put data sharing, the Google Analytics, though, basically put this feature in without asking Nintendo Switch owners permission and all that stuff? Do you think this is a big deal? Do you think Nintendo deserves the criticism and possibly a backlash against them for putting in this feature without notifying Switch users and all that? What are your thoughts about this whole issue of the controversy and Koei Tecmo clarifying their stance with the upcoming game Atelier Ryza 2? Do you think that they had to clarify their stance in regards to the censorship? Do you think this whole censorship issue is getting maybe a little bit out of hand, or do you think that consumers have a right to be concerned about in regards to censorship in video games in general? What are your thoughts about the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X sales numbers, though? Is this surprising to you? Is it not surprising to you, though? Do you think this could be an indication that PS5 could be dominant this generation, or do you think there's a chance Xbox Series S and X could be dominant, or do you think that we may not see the one-sided approach like we saw last generation with PS4, Xbox One, and the Wii U and all that stuff? And do you think the Switch will be able to compete against PS5 or Xbox Series S and X? And what are your thoughts about these PS5 Pro rumors, though? Do you think that we will see a PS5 Pro down the road, or do you think some people are taking this patent and blowing it way out of proportion. At least that's how I'm looking at it. Though, do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to. And feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description down below. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!